Welcome. Thanks for tuning in. We are here at WaterWise Live at the Shada Library with Josh Cleveland, the Spokane Garden Coach. Thanks for joining us.
Happy to be here.
And we're going to talk about gardening and plants and all cool things like that. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Kristen Zimmer. I'm the Conservation Program Manager for the Water Department, and I assist in a little bit with SpokaneScape. I'm not the expert here, which is why we have Josh. But I worked with the city for about 8 years now and love all things water and flowers. Yeah. So Josh, tell us about your story. You kind of have a full story.
Well, I'm Josh Cleveland. I'm owner and operator of Spokane Garden Coach, as Kristen said. It's my side gig, so I do it on the side of my other full-time work, but it is definitely my passion and the thing I care quite a bit about as well. I am a self-taught gardener, originally from Seattle, so I grew up around all sorts of plants on the west side, which is different than over here, but fell in love with gardening at the age of like 16 or 17 with a tomato plant, and then it has grown from there since then too. So I have just loved gardening, and I'm self-taught and do a lot of research, and so Spokane Garden Coach started in 2019 when I was needing some creativity in my life and realized that gardening was a great way to do it. Friends had asked me for years how to support them with their own gardening projects in their yard, and I would help them, and I realized, oh, I bet this could be something more too. So I started the business, and it has been so wonderful to see the response from folks around the city, and Instagram has been a great resource, and that has been a great way to grow my business as well. But truly, I just care about the environment, and I care about people, and my full-time job is in coaching, in career coaching and educational development as well. So I see that all tying together as I help people in and out of their garden and supporting them too. So been doing this, have a wait list because people want to do this WaterWise thing, and so a lot of because of the work of SpokaneScape as well. So it's been really fun to be a part of that, and that's the kind of designing and consulting I love to do the best. So
that's awesome. Yeah. That's super exciting to hear that you have a wait list.
Yeah, it's fun.
I believe it. Yeah.
I'm grateful. Yeah.
You know, and often that's like the hardest thing to do is to get started, and when you're not a practiced gardener, like how do you even begin? And you have a house that's just pure lawn, and it's like, I don't know what to do. Like you feel frozen, and at least that was my experience. I felt totally frozen, and I just couldn't even get started. It took me years to finally start digging out.
So for us, we moved into a house in 2018, and my wife Gretchen said, "Hey, we should do that SpokaneScape thing that was just starting out." So we installed our own like 1,100 square foot SpokaneScape ourselves in a yard on a space that had once been a beautiful garden and a landscape, and then it had just gone to pot. So since then, and you can see my pictures of my garden online, but we've changed it into a really WaterWise, pollinator-friendly space. And yeah, we didn't know where to start. We were just trying things out, using the skills we knew. We didn't have any support, and then it's really built from there for us and how we can support others as well in the process. And it's not as hard to start as you think. You just need a little bit of support and some resources. So that's why we're here, right?
Exactly. Well, so you were originally gardening in Seattle, and then you moved to Spokane, and we definitely have a different zone. So when I do the opposite, I see my family in Seattle, I'm like, you can plant anything. It's so lucky. So what have you enjoyed about gardening in Spokane that might be a little different?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, when I think of Seattle gardening, like my mother-in-law has a 50-year-old rhododendron that is so happy over there that would just be sad over here, right? Yeah. So, over here, there's so much I love about gardening over here in that there's a lot of options. People often think that WaterWise gardening has to be sparse, just sedums or cactus, which are beautiful, I think, but there's so much more. It can be really lush as well. So when you ask like what I love about gardening here, everything. Like there's lots of options, even though it's a shorter growing season than other parts of the states. There's a lot you can do, and it flourishes pretty quickly too. There's a lot of things because it's so warm, and things can grow and develop quickly if they're cared for well too. So I love that, and I love just the options that we have for things that you'd be surprised that are WaterWise. So we can talk about that some more too in a bit.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't quite realize what that means or what is possible. And so it's fun to think with people about what's possible. And I have a long list.
Nice, that's good. So we are approaching fall. It's not official. We have a few more
So close.
days or so. Very close. It's chilly in the morning. It's that time of year where you leave your jackets and sweaters in the office and have to bring another one the next day, and then you take them all home on Friday, if you remember.
Yep.
At least that's my routine. What are you looking forward to this fall?
Frankly, shutting down my garden. Like,
Taking a break?
You're taking a break. That's one of the things I love, just the rhythm of gardening too. Like in Spokane, it's nice that, it's like in California, it's like a year-round thing, which is great on the one end, but like I need some rest too. So
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to some rest and some dreaming about next year as well. So looking forward to that. I also love planting garlic around this time of year, so or in mid-October, so I'm really looking forward to that. It's one of my favorite timekeeping pieces of the garden, like knowing that's one of the things I do after I've cleaned most everything out-ish. Planting some garlic, it overwinters, and then just harvest in July. So looking forward to that in a couple weeks here too. So it's a great time to do that if you're thinking about it.
It's like the final touch. Put
Totally.
everything to bed
It
and
is.
plant your garlic.
Yeah,
And
tuck it in and then forget about it for a good number of months, and then you'll see some sprouts coming up in April and May. So
Nice,
yeah.
nice.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to a lot, and I just love autumn in Spokane for the colors and the beauty. This year it feels like, is it going to be late? Is it going to be really hot? Is it going to be really wet? I hope we get some plenty of rain, but I'm just excited for the rhythm of fall and kind of some rest coming up here too.
Right.
Yeah.
We're lucky to have the change of seasons.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And if
Yeah.
only fall would last, I don't know, till Christmas, I'd be happy.
Right? Yes.
Yeah, because it's so beautiful, all the different colors.
Yeah.
And I've enjoyed seeing it in my own garden, things that are blooming now that I was waiting for all summer long.
Okay, what are you seeing? What are you loving right now?
Oh my gosh. I'm not the expert. You put me on the spot.
I'm sorry.
I gotta think.
What
Indian blanket flower.
Oh my gosh,
That
yes.
is going wild in my garden. And it has the red, yellow, fall colors.
Totally.
Also some echinacea.
Yep.
I have some pink
This is the time of year. Yeah.
and
Awesome.
orange that are looking good. And white. Those are all doing pretty
Great.
good.
Nice peek into fall colors there. Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, so the sedums I have, I don't know what kind it is, but they're blooming now. Didn't know that was even going to happen, honestly. But beautiful pink blooms
Yep.
I've seen.
Yeah. I'll build on that from you too. Like sedum are a great option for, they start growing and blooming or popping up in late spring, and then they have beautiful foliage and waxy foliage throughout the summer, and then there's this textural pink color as well that comes, and the bees and the butterflies love them. So it's one of my go-to plants for designing in my own garden, but also for others as well, because it's really easy care and gorgeous and great for the pollinators as well. So and they divide happily too. So we can talk about that too in a bit of how to multiply your garden as well. But this for sure is a great one. So this is Elsie's Gold sedum. Autumn Joy or Autumn Fire are really other good sedums as well. So yeah.
And they're evergreen, are they?
No, they're herbaceous, so they die back. You cut them back in either in late fall, or
That's right.
I leave mine up throughout the winter just to provide some winter color and texture as well. So these flowers you see just provide some texture in their garden throughout the winter as well. So then I cut them back in March, and then they start coming back up right after that as well.
Okay.
Yeah. But if you don't like that look, you can absolutely cut them back in October, November.
I'd rather have something to look at than nothing
Same.
for
Totally.
the winter,
Same.
personally.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly.
One of my favorite here, Penstemon Husker's Red, is super cool. It keeps its leaves during the winter, all year round, but provides a really pretty dark green and red color. And it gets huge.
Yep. Yeah, and hummingbirds love those too, because it has tubular flowers, right? So the hummingbirds will go for that. So that's a good one. So yeah, Penstemon of all kind. I have one, Dark Night is what it's called, and it's gorgeous. Gets big and dark maroon leaves, and then pink, peachy flowers in the spring too.
Yeah.
So Penstemon is a great way to go. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I've been learning there's just so many different varieties of it too.
Yep.
I have at least 4 in my garden, and they look very different from each other.
Yeah, and they're native too, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah.
If you're on prairie walks or in the mountains too, they grow well in our region, so they don't need much water at all. So they're a great choice for waterwise gardening. Absolutely, yeah.
What do you think are the best fall plants that will be showy, like showy plants.
Yeah, for sure. Sedum is one of my favorite. Echinacea and coneflower as well. Echinacea or coneflower. Black-eyed Susan has lots of yellows and golds and browns too that are really nice. As you were saying with echinacea too, like I have a bunch that are pink and orange and red, like bright red or rusty red, and some creams and white. So I think I have about 40 on my property, just
nice.
because I love them. And those divide happily too, so you can like just divide, and after a couple years, usually after about 3 years, I divide my plants, and you can share with others or keep growing your garden and planting more around too. So those are nice and showy. Their foliage will turn yellowy gold often in later fall, so it just adds some nice color as well. Hyssop is a great one too. It's a mint. It's a part of this mint family, and it smells like root beer sometimes too. Like if you kind of gently touch it, it smells like root beer. And they have like golds and peaches as well, which are really fun. This morning I was out in my garden looking around, and I posted about a picture of it this morning too. But it just is beautiful, and hummingbirds love it, and butterflies love it as well. So that's fun. So it's nice and showy. It has great texture. Goldenrod is awesome. There's all different sizes of it too. There's some that come just a foot tall. I have one that's like that, and I have one that's about 5 feet tall as well. And people used to think it used to be called like sneezeweed, or it still is sneezeweed, but that's just a false name. Don't worry about it, But you'll see it around town too. It's just tall and golden, attracts like tons of bees, and it's a great statement piece in your garden, especially if folks have bigger spaces and they just need something simple. Like it'll spread, so you just need to divide it. But goldenrod fireworks is one of the good ones that it's called too.
What does it look like?
It's tall, 5 feet, like bright yellow blooms, like kind of spiky stems as well. But it's just gorgeous.
That sounds super cool.
It's really fun, yeah. I'm trying to think around town where you might see it. My garden. So that's a good one. What are some other good showy ones too right now? Lots of foliage changes on like Joe Pye weed is a fun one. It's a tall one as well. So when I grasses, yeah, totally. All of them. So this is Shenandoah switchgrass, right here. I have Carl Forster all around. A lot of people I think you told me you think it's not your favorite, right?
Well, but it's just so popular.
It's so popular, right?
I love it though.
I think it's staple for a reason. Yes, it is beautiful. And so it's great because it turns like this golden, rusty straw color. And I keep mine up throughout the winter as well, just because it provides some food for the birds and some great texture as well. So that's a fun one. I have a lot of blue-toned grasses as well, so like blue fescue and blue oatgrass too.
That's cool.
They're a little more compact, and just I don't always love traditional fall colors. I love like a mix too. So I have a lot of pinks in my fall garden too, with yarrow and some of the penstemon as well, which is kind of fun. And aster is a great fall plant too, because they bloom, lots of good foliage throughout the summer, and then they bloom. I have some purples and bright pinks in the fall too. So, and then their foliage will turn a golden color later in the fall too. So they're a fun addition. And you'll often see those all over, like on the East Coast, there's a lot of aster in the fall too. So, but they grow well here in Spokane for sure. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, I could go on because I love talking about the another grass that I have is called heavy metal, which I got at the Master Gardener sale a couple years ago. Heavy metal, and it kind of has these same, I don't know if you can see this, but some same spiky flowers, plumes at the end, and but it has like this silvery, beautiful color too that just goes in the breeze too. So heavy metal is a really fun one too, but. In the SpokaneScape guide, there are so many different grasses that you'll have in there that I rely on in my design process, and that folks can access really easily as well. So grasses are a good staple of waterwise gardening for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, oh totally.
Shout out to the program. I'm not even doing
this?
that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's this program called SpokaneScape. It's pretty great.
Yeah.
I do like our plant list. I think it's super handy because everything is tried and true, and we know works and grows really well.
Absolutely. Well, I will say for folks who are thinking about waterwise gardening or SpokaneScape more specifically, this is a great resource. Whether you live in Spokane in the city, or if you're in the county and just need a list, right? Or if wherever you are too, like this is a great resource for you to kind of build off of for where it does well in our zone 5-6 region as well. So it's a great, you all have done a good job. So yeah.
Oh, thank you. People I work with have done a good job.
Go team, right?
Yep. Okay, are you seeing any cool new fall trends, color palettes, or?
Yeah, no.
Yes and no.
I think as I said a little bit ago too, like I do like a lot of the pinks and rustier colors too, like the maroons and whatnot. I think that is kind of a fun take on some of more traditional fall colors. So a lot of sedums have some darker reds as well, or that maroon color too, which I think is really fun.
Yeah.
Really complements the yellow and the orange of traditional fall colors as well. Other trends, it really depends on the gardener, right? Like, so for me, I love a lot of color. I love a lush landscape, and so I'm all about bringing in lots of colors for folks, and a lot of my clients love that too. And then there's some folks who just don't care about trends and just like, I want some grass. That's it, in terms of ornamental grass, And so, but I think thinking outside the box of oranges and yellows is kind of where a lot of design is going right now in the other folks that I work with as well. So
I noticed that I was just really drawn to purples.
Yeah.
When my garden was in bloom this spring, I was like, okay, that's a lot of purple I put in.
I have a lot of that too. What do you have that's purple in there? Do you know?
Well, when my woolly thyme was blooming, so it has purple blooms and it was gorgeous.
Yeah.
Catmint, lavender.
Yep.
My bee balm.
Yeah, totally.
I mean, a different purple, but still purple.
It's a great addition too for fall colors. All those things kind of persist into fall too from the purples. So what I tell people is like, grow what you love, right, in the plant or the color that you love too. So a lot of people joke like, Josh, pink, a fall color. I'm like, yeah, So one of my themes is kind of like grow what you love, grow what you want to see in your space too. So, Kristen, you love purple, keep growing purple, right? No shame in that. But if you love other palettes, do that, and that can be a fall color for you as well. So, I talk to people a lot about our gardens are laboratories, a happy laboratory that you can try things, see if they work, and then try again if you need to tweak. And so if you feel like you want to try something out as what's going to be my fall color or my fall palette, try it out and see if you like it. You can move it around. You can change it next year, Yeah. So I like to break the stigma of there's lots of exact ways you can garden. I think there's 1,000,001 different ways you can garden. So and there's just some basics that you need to know as well too. But you can be creative as you need to be.
What are gardening basics?
Yeah, water, soil, and sun, right? Are like you need to be thinking about those, right?
All living things need those.
All those things, right?
Yeah.
So when I talk with folks about their garden space, right, I always ask them, okay, what's your sun situation? Are you aware of like what the movement of the sun is in the spring and summer and the fall? And thinking about a lot of water-wise plants do best in full sun. They don't like the shade. A lot of plants like this sedum, if they get too much shade, will get floppy. And people are like, well, I'm a bad gardener because ... this is flopping, but no, it's just in the wrong place. So let's move that around. That we can fix that, right? So, so think about the sun. So think about the plants that thrive in the sun or those that need the shade. And again, in SpokaneScape, you all have a great new shade section of plants that do really well in the shade that are water-wise as well. So sedum, not sedum, excuse me, hosta, thank you. Hosta and astilbe, and Japanese forest grass is a really fun one.
Oh, I love that.
Virginia. So there are a ton that do really well in the shade. So
they're a little bit more difficult to find, I think.
Can be.
Yeah, besides hostas, that's very simple, but sometimes I just like to go plant shopping.
Yes, me too.
Sometimes it's just on accident,
Me
but
too.
I'm looking at the tag and all the everything's typically full sun that I find. That's drought tolerant as well.
Yeah, ask around. I think a lot of nurseries are increasing their stock of more shady, drought tolerant plants as well. So, but yeah, as you said, look at the tag, see what it says, and ask someone at the nursery, like, hey, what do you think about this for my space? Tell them clearly, or take a picture with you of this is what my space looks like at noon, right? At 9, noon, and 3, right? I could take a couple different pictures to kind of know the movement of the sun.
Yeah.
And that can really help you and someone who's helping you to know as well. So sun, think about it, the sun situation is really important. Water, having a good plan for how you're going to irrigate your space is super important, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about water-wise gardening, which is important and a value of mine and a value of, I know, SpokaneScape and Water-wise Spokane. You still have to use some water, right?
Yeah.
We don't get enough rain just to rely on rain for watering things.
We get no rain in the summer.
Right.
In the growing, we hit spring, yes, and then
traces, right?
barely measurable. So
I always tell people, if you're thinking about doing a water-wise landscape, think about what your watering plan is going to be. If you have an in-ground irrigation system already, you can convert that, right? If you want to save and install one, because they can be expensive, but they're not always out of reach. That's important too. I always tell people, it never hurts to talk to your irrigation company to see how much it might cost you, because you don't know until you know, and then you can go from there. Or you can use a hose bib, right, and a timer. I know you all have had some rebates on kind of automated timers before too, so there's a million different ways. But I always tell folks, if you want to water by hand, you can, but that's not always the most practical, right?
It's hard to go on vacation when you water by hand.
Totally,
And have some new plants or things you're concerned about.
So helping people think about what their plan is, what they want to do, how they want to spend their time. So if they want to water by hand and they stay closer to home, hey, great, you can do that,
for you?
right? But if for folks who are busier or don't love to be in the garden as much, or would rather be doing other things in the garden, thinking about some other automated ways really can help quite a bit. And there's a number of companies in Spokane that are becoming more and more familiar with water-wise landscaping as well. So I think it doesn't hurt to ask and see who's good in town, who can help you as well. So have a plan for that. And then just be smart too. The goal is not to waste. We want to conserve water. It's a precious, limited resource, right? So, so when you have some watering plans, you don't just set it and forget it, right? You have to keep tweaking it, right?
Absolutely.
So I tell people, have a plan for spring, and then about every month I recheck my plan and my system and my timing, and because we have an automated system, and just make sure that I'm not overwatering or underwatering, frankly, too. So
right, those can kind of look the same, as far as damage to the plant.
100%, yeah. So many of these plants don't want a ton of water, right?
Right, yeah, and you do more harm than good.
Exactly.
But we love our plants so much, and I think, we worry about them staying alive, and when it's hot, you're thirsty, you need water,
exactly.
But that's not always the case.
What I think about too for folks is maybe for newer gardeners or who are new to water-wise gardening too, get to know your landscape. Whether you love being out there or not, get to know what your plants are doing in different times of the year or different times of the day, and you'll learn pretty quickly. This sounds so cheesy, but you'll have a relationship enough to know, oh, this is not healthy right now. You can help figure out how to improve that too. So water is super important. And then what did I say? Sun, air, and soil, right?
Yes.
And Spokane soil, right?
Yeah. How's your soil?
My soil, I'm thankful in my space. I live on the South Hill, and it's actually pretty dang good. It's pretty fertile. We had a former gardener who was wonderful to that space and took good care of the soil. So we are the beneficiaries of that, and we've been building it up as well. I used to live in the Audubon neighborhood that has 1,000,001 rocks all over the place. We dug out so many rocks from around there too, and it was a little more clayey as well, and harder to dig into, but also it was harder for us initially as newer gardeners to figure out how to water that space as well.
That's interesting. I wouldn't expect clay to be over there.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, so usually you hear have really sandy soil or clay-rich soil. Very few people will be I have a perfect loam.
You have to build it, right? And one thing, and when we talk about building, it means adding nutrient-dense compost, natural matter, right?
Yes.
So most plants don't of these kind of water-wise plants or drought-tolerant plants don't need a ton of fertilization. They don't need a ton of of amendment, but soil in general needs to be a little more soft, and think of a wet sponge as what is the ideal consistency when after you've watered too. You don't want it to be like a soaking rag that you squeeze out, right, and all this water comes out, nor do you want it to be like crumbling in your hands like dust, right?
Right.
So,
yeah.
So yeah, adding compost to your space, right? What I tell people to do is before you plant, if you install a SpokaneScape landscape, or just planting one by one as well, putting a bit of compost around that space. Sometimes I have people just put like an inch of organic, clean compost throughout their space, just as an initial amendment and a basic mulch layer, and then that helps to soak into the soil as well. And you can keep adding that over time as well. But most of our soil needs a lot of help, right? So it's okay to keep building that and adding compost as you're able to do that as well. So that just helps with helping the plants to flourish and be nourished as well. So
nothing to set it and forget it, even your soil.
Totally, yeah.
Right? Like everything takes work and effort.
You need to help it out.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So true. Yeah, I have such like rich clay soil.
Me too. Okay.
And it's different in different parts of my yard. Like one area behind my garage is like, I mean, you can't even break through it. Like pure clay, it feels like. And then you go to the front yard and it's more like of a clay loam. And so that's been interesting to find out.
Well, one thing to think about is like all of our soil has history, right? Like other things have been there, you know, or other things have used that soil. So who knows in your space, like was there once a huge tree in that space that used the soil differently, or has there just been nothing there for years and years? So basically any kind of soil, whether super sandy or clayey, really can benefit from having some compost added to your space. So.
We like to say compost is magic.
It is, yes, totally.
But usually I say a little bit more excited, like compost is magic. I wasn't passionate enough.
It's early on a Friday, so.
It is. Okay, so basic needs, where do you recommend people begin? You say, talk to me, I'll make a plan with you.
Yeah, I always tell people like, there's a couple different ways you can think about it, right? You can, if you know just enough and you know your resources, just continue to do a little bit of research before you get inspired today and you're like, I'm gonna do this today. Take a deep breath, take a beat, and do a little more research, right? So yeah, talking to just about anybody in the SpokaneScape, you know, SpokaneScape pros, a bunch of us who design for SpokaneScape clients, and we can help you think about a plan as well. And if you want to try things out, like you can basically use this and go from this. There's step-by-step ways to build. But I think an important place to start is to know what your goal is for your space too. What do you want, right? Are you hoping to renovate your whole entire, you know, landscape, or just a portion, right? And I often tell people it's okay to start small. Chances are you're going to get addicted to it and want to build upon that, right? So that's okay. So starting small, learning the basics, asking for help along the way will serve you and your space really well, because no one wants to go out and buy a ton of plants and then a month later you're over it, right? And things are all crispy and dead because you really haven't done the process. So I encourage folks to think about winter time. You know, fall and winter are a great time to be working on your plans and your dreams. Maybe you get inspired right now and you want to put things together. Thinking about it, talking to folks throughout the winter, and then setting up a plan for maybe spring planting, or thinking about fall is an awesome time to plant, and I know we're going to talk about that as well, but even starting now to think about what you can do to prep for next year as well. So knowing all those things, that sun, that soil, and that water situation, that's an important place to start too. I know a lot of people, I talk about budget a lot in gardening because it can be easy just to go to the nursery and onesie-twosie, guilty as charged. But also if you do that, like you're not thinking the longer term as well, because you can start with your basics and then you can add those one by one if there's other things you want to add in there. But creating a budget that makes sense for your values and for your family or for your home is a great place to start, just to know where you're going to be. And if you need some support thinking about what things might cost or how that process might be, feel free to talk to another SpokaneScape pro or the SpokaneScape team too, because we can help do some basic guesstimating for you as well on that front.
Plants, I have found they're running sales right now.
Yes.
although he said don't go out and buy plants. But if you already know what you're going to do,
Yes.
you can get a little discount right now, which is beneficial.
Well, one tip on that too, like there are a ton of like 30 to 50% off sales in the fall, which is an awesome way to kind of build your garden too. If there's things that you know are great, or if folks have shared with you, like, and you don't exactly know where they need to go, just plant them somewhere in your garden for right now, and then over the fall and winter, create your plan with those plants in mind, and you can totally do that happily in spring. Your plants will likely have survived the winter, and you can place them in the right place. So it's okay to go out and buy things if you have a sense that they're going to be water-wise, that you want to use them. But as a general rule of thumb, it's good to have a plan before you go out and plant as well.
Definitely. But you might not be as organized like me.
I've been there too. Absolutely.
Yeah. So there is also one other thing I would recommend for people to do is go to SpokaneScape.org and check out the designs Josh made for inspiration or just a way to get started in the program. You made 5, right? 5 awesome designs with a great theme that I love so much. But there's even one for a parking strip, just different shaped areas. So
deer resistant one I did, and a shade tolerant one.
Shade tolerant, so I think a couple people, at least Kyle would know better, but I know people have used those this summer as their palette, and just a great way to get started.
Yeah. Well, that was the hope, right? Thank you for inviting me to do that too. We have those 5 that have your plant list, the quantity, where you should plant them as well. There's one example that printed in here, and then those 5 downloadable online too. That some have a lot fewer plants, and some are really packed with plants too. And you can do those all at once, or you can kind of build on those over time too. But if you don't have the resources right now to hire somebody to support you, that's a great place to start in thinking about plants that might do well in your waterwise space. Yeah,
and our goal for next year is to partner with a nursery. Don't know which one yet, so if you're out there, give me a call to provide essentially the SpokaneScape in a box. So you can get Josh's design and then have all those plants and just go get to work.
That's great.
So next year.
Awesome.
Coming
that sounds great. Yes.
All right, so I want to ask you or relay the questions that we received on Instagram. Okay. So from Once Upon a Backyard asked, is there a good mowable lawn replacer for our area? So instead something that looks like lawn, I'm guessing. I guess they want to mow, but is less water thirsty.
Couple of things come to mind. One of my favorite places in town that has all sorts of resources is Northwest Seed and Pet. It has a lot of turf grass, but also replacement ideas as well. And you can go in and talk to just about anybody on their staff, and they'll help you out with this front. So there you go on that. A couple different options too. There's one grass called I think it's just a basic name of low mow grass, and it's kind of looks a little lumpier. You may have seen it around town as well. Just lovely movement and color, kind of more silvery than a traditional grass color, but really does really well, and from a water-wise perspective. And I think for that one, you can mow it once or twice a year and just be fine with it too. So that's a really nice option for folks. Clover can be a good option.
Have you actually seen a full clover yard?
I've seen folks who do more patches. Right?
Okay, yeah.
And a lot of people are inspired to do that for the bees, because bees, that's a primary, especially early spring food for the bees. And so mostly I see it done more in patches. I haven't seen somebody do a whole one. Have you?
Yeah. No. But if you're out there, again, call me. I need to see it. Because that would be so ideal if I could get clover to just fill in a big space, kind of mimic the turf aesthetic, but then be way more earth-friendly, bee-friendly, water-friendly, all of that.
Well, what I would say, for folks who may be thinking about clover or love clover, it is beautiful, right? And it gets really packed and dense as well, too. But bees tend to bees and weeds like to come through that as well. So you just have to be mindful of how you prepare your space for that, really having a clear palette and not just kind of sprinkling them right on top of your existing grass necessarily. So other people use woolly thyme or creeping thyme as well, which is lovely because the bees love that. It has a pink or purple or white color in the spring and summer.
And you can walk on it.
You can
and
walk
it's
on
soft.
it.
You can walk barefoot.
Just the only caution on that is it does kind of die back, and so it gets pretty brown and dark in the winter, and so that just might be aesthetically, if that bothers you, maybe move away from that as well. Clover. What's another thing? Some people do use a lower yarrow. There's yarrow that's more like 2, 3, 4 feet tall, but there's also like 6-inch tall yarrow that you can use, and it grows, and that's another native as well. It gets pretty dense, and it also gets a little more darker brown though. So again, if in late fall and early spring when the snow is not there, if you don't prefer that look, maybe you want to stay away from that. But there's a ton of options. Do some research, but that low mow grass is one that's really, I've been seeing a lot more online that people are using, and I have a couple clients who've done that as well.
Yeah,
So,
I've seen the English landscaper has an area that with the no mow grass or low mow grass, but it definitely mimics like a grassy field.
Yep,
so it looks pretty cool.
Yeah,
And it's water wise.
it's a good option.
Yeah. So if you're not ready to be full-on garden people, you still, I like, it's nice to have a mix of like all the plants and then kind of that negative space, just
Absolutely.
like a rest and then more plants.
It's just like any design, like negative space is important, right? So that's the same thing in the garden.
Yeah.
I need to follow that sometimes more because I love all the plants, but yeah, that negative space is important.
Yeah. Okay, another question we had from Stormy Don Given, cool name, was can we earn the $150 credit if we've already done a SpokaneScape? So that's actually not for you. That's for me.
That's for you.
You should have asked me that.
I'm sorry.
Why didn't you ask?
So they're talking here about the parking strips, right?
Yes.
And that's a newer initiative you all have?
Yeah,
right?
we're running a promotion called Flip Your Strip.
Okay.
Because, as you probably know, parking strips are impossible to keep green and impossible to water efficiently because sometimes they can be like less than a foot wide, especially in the South Hill. Have you seen those? They're so silly. They're like this long.
Or they're 8 feet wide, right?
Yeah. So we're trying to, have a fun fall project for people. So anyone, doesn't matter if you've already done SpokaneScape this year, if you want to flip your strip, no matter the size, we're offering a $150 credit if you SpokaneScape it. You still need to have the plants and a mulch and efficient irrigation. But this will be hopefully a good place to get you started if you haven't. And just really a place that wastes a ton of water because if you're automatically irrigating it, it's going on the street, it's going on your sidewalk, no doubt, because it's impossible to water.
Yeah. 2 thoughts on that. So parking strips are some of my favorite things to design and to see as well. Like, so if you do that, like your neighbors will thank you probably, right? Because it's likely there's dead and splotchy grass, if at all, in that space. One thing that we did in our last house is we had our irrigation company do a quick little shoot underneath our sidewalk and up to make sure we got some good consistent irrigation into that space too that had never had irrigation before, and it was amazing. Like, and we had it planted, as a water-wise landscape, and it was gorgeous, right? Because we had the right kind of water. Drip irrigation in there was such a gift, and it came to life and was easy to maintain, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes around town you'll see people who get inspired to do them and haven't thought about that watering plan, right? And then things are fried soon after that. So as you were saying, that making sure there's a good resource for water and making sure people can really maintain consistently is super important. But parking strips are a great gateway into the rest of water-wise gardening too. So if you're looking for that, this rebate is a good option for folks.
And I know Diane Stutzman at Desert Jewel Nursery has a whole area that are essentially like no water plants that she's put together that would do really well in the parking strip, aka hell strip, because it's so hot and impossible to water.
Yes, totally.
I learned that from the master gardeners. That's what they call it.
Me too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is a common misconception people have when they're switching up the landscaping?
Yeah, I think probably that it's going to be super, super expensive, It's not always, it can be, depending on what your tastes are and what your hopes are and how you plan out or don't, right?
Yeah.
But it can be really cost effective too, depending on how you plan and how you prepare for it as well. So again, kind of my mentality and my coaching life professionally full-time and in this side gig too, is just to ask. If you don't know something, just ask. Ask someone at SpokaneScape, ask a SpokaneScape pro like myself, like, hey, how much is it? What's a general ballpark for this kind of area if I'm looking for these kinds of plants? Also, as I said, for irrigation as well, like thinking about that. And online, there's lots of different resources for budgeting tools for like mulch and soil as well. So it takes some time, but it doesn't have to be impossible. Another misconception is like it can be done overnight, right? And again, as I said, like planning matters. I have some clients who, had me in last year in 2021 and are just this fall planting, right? Because they've really wanted to be thoughtful about how they prepare as well. So thinking about what's important to you, like what can you do now that makes sense, right? And that's going to be sustainable, but then think about the longer term of like, hey, how can I do this right as opposed to doing it quick, and I think that's really important.
It is, and it makes it easier in the end.
Yep, totally.
If you do it right.
Yeah, because the whole goal of this kind of landscaping and gardening is to conserve, right? To use the things that do well in this region, this area, and to save water and to save other resources as well. So it's good to be thoughtful about the process.
I think the biggest misconception I always hear is, what are my neighbors? My neighbors are not gonna like it, or they're gonna judge me. Like they're worried about the social aspect of not having the traditional turf lawn with two trees stuck in the middle. Like, right, that is a big thing. And I know a neighbor even said that to me. Like, she also has a drought-tolerant garden in the front. She did hers way before SpokaneScape came, and the landscape designer she worked with was like, your neighbors are going to hate you if you do this. And she was like, I don't care.
Shoot. Well, I will say this. So in our yard, we have probably about 2,000 square feet of water-wise landscape, and then we have probably about 700 square feet of turf grass. So we did keep some grass just to play on and hang out as a family as well. But I will say, like, multiple times a week, when we're outside or in the garden or just around, people stop us and thank us for our garden. Like, thank you for adding this to the neighborhood. I see what you're doing. I'm curious about that. So it's, as many people might kind of roll their eyes initially, because sometimes when you start planting, it looks really sparse and like, what the heck are they doing, right?
Totally.
But in perennial landscaping, it takes 2 or 3 years for things to really fill in. So by that second and third year, people might gain vision, right? And be less judgmental. But you're right, there's some people who have that traditional thought of like, we need grass. And grass is not evil, right? But it's not the best or most efficient for most landscapes.
Yeah, it was really funny to see. So I did my SpokaneScape last year, and we filmed the whole process and created a DIY series that's available on our website.
Oh, fun.
So tag along with me and Kyle as we go through a SpokaneScape together. But it was fun to see my neighbors' reactions, because I did sheet mulching, right? So and the area was like 2,200 square feet, and my neighbor sees all this cardboard out, and he's like, "What are you doing?"
Yes,
Like, don't worry.
It's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And I covered it with bark right away. And then once I got the plants in, all my neighbors are passing by, walking, and being like, I wasn't sure about what you were doing, but it actually looks good.
Yeah, people get on board for sure. So.
And now I have people coming by and taking pictures.
Yeah.
Like,
good job.
And like thanking me and complimenting me.
Absolutely.
I guess I'm a gardener now.
Good job, Kristen. Yes, yes.
Awesome. Okay, so I think we were going to wrap up now, unless there's anything else you wanted to
We've covered a lot
share.
today.
I know, we have. But how do we find you? On the internet?
Yeah, on the internet. I'm most active on Instagram at Spokane Garden Coach, and provide lots of tips, some images of other gardens as well. Primarily water-wise gardening, but also some edible, and my chickens sometimes too. I have a website, SpokaneGardenCoach.com. I'm not as active on Facebook, but I am on there. So if there's things you need, you can find me through any of those channels, and I usually try to be pretty quick to respond as well. And then if you want to get on a wait list, in any of those resources, you'll see where to find my wait list as well.
Yeah. Awesome. You're going to be speaking at the Rosarian this weekend, but it is sold out.
Tomorrow's Saturday, doing an hour-and-a-half class on water-wise landscaping out there. We have about 35 people who are coming, so grateful to Carol and the Rosarium for hosting that. And they have a great number of plants and some great sales right now, by the way, too. So we're doing that, and then we might do it again next spring too. So
can I sneak in?
You can ask Carol. Guest. Carol's the gatekeeper. So, but
what if I co-present?
I bet you.
I'll just give you water and things.
Hey,
and,
I
fan
bet,
you.
I bet you could be able to do that. Yes. So yeah. So it should be fun. I'm excited for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
We do have a couple classes next week if you're still tuning in. With the Master Gardeners Wednesday evening and Saturday morning, we're doing a water-wise gardening class with the Spokane Master Gardeners. And we'll have information out on our website very soon about that. All right. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you.